Hello people, it's the 12th of July 2020 and here you are with Dan in Essex, UK. So I'm a very keen home grower of fruit and vegetables, and today I've tipped out some potatoes that I was growing in a bucket, so we're going to have a little potato reveal for you. And I've also set a fig tree. So let's take a look at the fig tree first. So I've actually owned this fig tree here for a number of years now. In fact, it may be coming up 8, 9, 10 years, something like that. So I bought it originally from one of the budget shops, and it was about that big you know, when you get them at the start of the year, like a cutting that's available. And yes, it's about this big, and I remember it was wrapped in like a little bag, the root was, and the rest of it was in a box. So there we go. So I've had it in a pot for the last few years, and then I moved it into a bigger pot, and I thought, well, I would like a relatively large fig tree. So this little area here, the fig tree will absolutely love it. It gets a lot of heat in the form of these walls, fences rather, that hold the heat from the back and both sides. So it really will love that. Now figs, they require well draining soil, but they also like a lot of moisture as well. So it's quite intriguing really, but they have plenty of water and well draining soil. So the soil here is very sandy, so that really will do well here. In fact, sort of relatively warm climates, sort of hardy exotics if you will, do tend to do well here in this part of the southeast. So there we go. So let you have a look at it. Very healthy looking leaves. Now won't be getting a crop this year, but maybe next year. I know that figs generally benefit from root restriction, but it never really has thrived in the pot it was in, and I think, you know, I can give it this place in the garden and it should do very well indeed. So if you take a look at the garden here, it's quite sort of a rustic looking system, but as the periods of time go by, I will be refining it a little bit here because you know, it needs a little bit of refining, but all things will happen in time. Now, I'm not 100% sure what variety the fig actually is. I personally think it will be brown turkey. Now, I cannot remember what it said on the box, or even if it did specify the variety at that time of my gardening sort of career, if you will. I wasn't as specific as I am now, but I generally recommend that people do make a note somewhere of the varieties that they're growing, because it can be nice to know. Okay, so two varieties of potatoes. Potato reveal here. So on the right we have, we have Red Duke of York, okay, and done very well indeed. And on the left, that is variety Wilger, or Willier. So Red Duke of York, introduced I think in the year 1942, and it was very popular towards the end of World War II for amateur gardeners. So quite a bit of history attached to that. You know, you think of like there not being that much food around during the war, and you know, how important it would have been, because people just simply did not have as much food then as they generally have now in this country. So on the left, this is variety Wilger, which I believe, I had looked it up, it was initially sort of come about, if you will, in 1967, and I think it was introduced in 1975, so relatively historical, and that's from the Netherlands. So very good yields of crops there, particularly with the Wilger. And with regards to the Wilger, apparently they take on the taste of the soil that they're grown in. So it would be interesting to, you know, do a taste comparison. Maybe, you know, one could grow some in some, you know, some like clay soil, and then in some sandy soil, and just see how the results go. But yeah, quite happy with that, so should do me for meals throughout the week. So I've done a little bit of a pick here of some Dorff beans, variety tender greens, so be taking some of those. First runner bean has appeared, there we go, so quite happy with that. I hope you can see that just there with the black fly as well, looking really healthy. So makes me happy to think that I'm able to house some black fly on my crops. So there we go, that'll be a feed. So these blueberries are absolutely fantastic this year, really happy. So for those of you who are relatively sort of new to blueberries, you've got to keep the pH between 4.5 to 5.5, which is acidic, okay, otherwise known as ericaceous. If you don't do that, you'll have very weak plants which could die and certainly be weakened, and you won't get good crops. So make sure you do that. And I've got them in here, as many of you are aware, to keep the birds off. I might even have a pick of some of these blueberries this evening. Very nice, and the chillies really are rocking and rolling now. So these are varieties Onavec, Okay, seeds from the Real Seed Company, which many of you are very aware that I hold in very high regard. I suggest you check out their website, realseeds.com, I think, the Real Seed Company. Chillies there, look, so yeah, great croppers. Certainly going to be expanding my chilli collection next year. So what's coming up then? Well, summer crops more or less sort of finishing now in terms of potatoes, or first early potatoes. I've got loads more down there. I've got varieties, ooh, I can't remember, it escapes me. I've got it jazzy, got a lot of jazzy, but I could easily tip them out if I wanted now, but you know, I'm not going to. I'm going to leave them a little bit longer, and I'm going to be thinking about my autumn crops soon. So there we go, that's this week's update. If you like my work, please feel free to like, share and subscribe. And as always, you can check me out on Dan_Home_Gardens on Instagram. Now, this is one thing I always recommend people do, okay? And that's that you have standby crops of good, tried and tested, standard things. I've got kale and spinach here, and as space gets realised, let go of, if you will, I will be planting. So there we go.